In this lesson, we are actually going to step into the world of Web3. We're actually going to be programming a Web3 file to make the connection between the metaverse and the blockchain. And that way, the metaverse will be able to show the NFTs in a graphical representation. There's actually a really easy way to do it. And to do that, we're going to create a brand new file inside the folder called source called web3.js. So we're going to call it web3.js, and inside that web3.js, we're going to copy and paste that address that we copied from the smart contract. We're going to comment it in, and we're going to import the abi.json. The way we're going to do that is we're going to type in import, and then we're going to do abi from, and now we're going to put the location where we got it. It's ./abi/abi.json, and then we put assert, and then we put the type. So we specify that the type is a JSON. Okay, now to establish this connection, we're going to need to use a promise that's going to return to us a resolve or an error. So we're either going to get a result or we're going to get an error. Okay? And the first thing we need to do is we need to specify to the user that they need to use MetaMask. So to do that, we need to have some sort of way to detect if MetaMask is being used. So the thing we're going to do right now is we're actually going to check to see if MetaMask is available. And if it's not, we're going to notify the user that they need to use MetaMask. So we're going to notify the user that they do not have MetaMask if that were the case. But how do we do that? It's actually quite simple. We simply establish if type of, and then we establish window.ethereum equals undefined. So this language will let you know that it's not connected to MetaMask, or they do not have MetaMask at all. Or perhaps they're not logged into MetaMask, but there's simply no connection to MetaMask. If that's the case, they're going to get an error with the reject that we established here from the promise. And it's simply going to say, you should install MetaMask to use it. Okay? So we're clarifying to the user that they need to have MetaMask in order to be able to use this software. Okay, that's the message, or you can customize it whichever way you want. The idea is for the user to be able to see the message that they need MetaMask. Following that, we're going to start a Web3 instance. Okay, so let's define here, we're starting a Web3 instance. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to go let Web3 equal new Web3. And we specify window.ethereum. And from there, we move on and we go on let contract. And we're going to establish a connection to our smart contract. The way we do that is we open up new, and with the Web3 instance we're creating, we're going to specify web3.eth.contract, and in that contract we need to pass two values. The first one's the ABI we got, and the second was the address to our smart contract, which is going to paste in here. Okay, so now we got this. This way we're going to be able to establish a connection with our smart contract. We save and we move on. At this point, we need to do some additional functions that will help us. Well, one of them is going to be, we need to get our MetaMask address. So get my MetaMask address. Let me specify that and comment it out. And we have to find out what is the MetaMask address that we're using. The way we do that is we actually use Web3. Web3 has a very easy way to do that. You do that by web3.eth.getAccounts. We then follow that with a then, and we need to specify that we're looking at accounts. And then these accounts, we need to then specify that it's actually going to be a console log. Okay, so that we can actually visualize these accounts. So from here, we're going to specify my account is, and then we need to then get the value. Here we got accounts. And since we're going to get an array with a list of a lot of addresses, we really just want to look at the first one. So we need to specify the 0 value. That's position 0, the first one in the list. Okay? Now, the next functions are all very, very similar to these. So I'm just going to copy these and I'm going to paste it and I'll modify them as needed. So what exactly are we going to do? One of the key things that we're going to do is we're actually going to get the current supply of the NFT tokens that are available. So how many NFT tokens have been created? So we're going to specify, get the current supply of NFT tokens. Okay. Now we have to access that function. And when we access that function, we have to access via an account. And as you can see, I've already identified the account here. Okay. So I can continue here. I can start with a contract.methods. This lets me access the methods of the contract. And the one that I'm going to use is total supply. Let me check right now to see that's exactly how it's written. And if I see it, total number, here we go, total supply, correct. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to use exactly that, and I paste it. That's going to let me know that it's exactly. Now, since this is a view function, what we need to do is a call. So we're going to do a call. If we were actually sending the information, we would use a .send, but we use a .call because we're doing a view. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do a call from my account. So that's what we're going to specify here, from accounts and then 0. So then this will give us the supply. So we specify supply. And now let me make some modifications here. Let me erase this line here. And what we do now is set a console.log that will give us the current supply of NFT tokens that we have available. Okay. So we're specifying current supply of NFT tokens is, and here we specify the supply value, this value that we have right here. All we've done is access our account. And then once we've accessed that account, we're actually getting the total supply. And then from the total supply, we do a call action from the account. And then we specify the supply. And then once we have that supply, we then actually have a console.log that actually gives us the supply number. And that's what we got. And just like that, we've got Web3 for the total supply of the NFT tokens. Now we will do the same thing to retrieve the maximum number of supply that we have available. This is actually a value that will let us know the maximum number of NFTs, a maximum supply that's available. So what we're going to do right now is get the maximum number of supply for NFT tokens. Okay, so we specify get the maximum supply of NFT tokens. And the way that we do that is actually quite easy. What we do is it's the same way. We have a value in our smart contract and we're going to look for the max supply. Here's the max supply. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go max supply. And because it's public, what we're going to do is say getter. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this max supply. We're going to go back to here and we're going to replace total supply with max supply. Then we're going to modify also the console log. Instead of current, we're going to maximum supply. Now here I need to specify max supply, and here instead of current, it's going to be maximum supply. And now we have everything programmed as is. What this will do is it will give us the max supply value from the smart contract, which is the maximum of 100. Okay. Now we're going to be adding to the smart contract another element, which I'm going to copy and paste this here. And this element will allow us to do a get. And what we're looking for is your buildings made in the metaverse. Okay. So how do we actually get those? And instead of doing the total supply, what we're going to be looking for is we're going to be looking for get buildings. The function get buildings is what gets us the buildings. Okay. So if we want to find out the get the owner buildings, that's what we want. So we have get buildings, which is to get all the buildings. That's all the buildings. Now we will be using that also, but at this moment, we're going to begin with get owner buildings. So we're going to place here get owner buildings. It's a call function. So it's going to go from our account. And what we're going to get back is the buildings. So we get the buildings from that account and we will represent it right now. So let me clarify here that instead what we're going to be doing is your buildings. And let me beautify this a little bit. Let me straighten this up a little bit too. And perfect. Okay. Now we've got the buildings made in the metaverse. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do a get for all the buildings in the metaverse. So get all the buildings made in the metaverse. Okay, perfect. So what we'll do is we're going to copy this. Instead of getting the get owner, we're going to get the get buildings. So instead of get owners, we're going to call for get buildings. And what we're going to do is, how do we actually specify this? Well, what we need to do is we need to make some small modifications here. So let's start from the beginning. What we're going to start is we're going to specify contract.methods. And what we're going to call is the total supply. We do a call from the accounts, and then in the array we specify 0. And following that, we do a then to store this account that will return to us the buildings. And where are we actually looking for the total supply? Well, we're getting the total supply so we actually know exactly the number of buildings that are made in the metaverse. This will actually let us later represent the exact number of buildings that are inside the metaverse. So at this point, I create a contract.methods.get buildings, which we're actually getting from the metaverse.sol, right here, get buildings, .call from our account, specifying accounts 0. Then what this will return for us is the information, the data. Perfect. Following that, what we need to do now is we need to get the results for this. So it's going to be a result, and we need to specify supply. You'll see that the supply here is actually specified here as buildings. So we would do buildings, or instead we can actually change it. Let's put it supply, and we can replace both. We'd have to replace both calls. Okay. Following that, we need to include building, okay, which is actually the data. This is the buildings that we actually have created or made in the metaverse. So at this point, what we have is the buildings that are made in the metaverse and what are actually represented in the metaverse. So by this point, we have the calls all set up, but they're still not adapted to our metaverse. They're simply related to Web3 and blockchain. Now, we need to come up with a function inside index.js that will call the information from web3.js into the index.js. And we will cover that in the next lesson.